What's up, Facebook Live? Back after a month out. Get things kicking here. We got a big show ahead of us. We got Mark Hissom in the house. Gonna be a good time. Mark found my house after his 2-day journey to the other side of the planet. My friends Angie and Dave, they'll know what I'm talking about that. They live in Grove City, and they act like it took a moon mission to get here. Make sure we're streaming good. Always makes me feel better when other people are watching. Sometimes when me and Wills went live, sometimes we'll be live, and I'm like, man, look, there's somebody waiting on us. He's like, yeah, I'm live on my phone right now. So, sweet, move that out of the way. So we'll be a little rusty on this one. I haven't been at it for a month.
This is my first time.
Yeah, this is your first time in the studio. Yeah, look out. Yeah, now that we got somebody watching, that's got to be Havanas. We'll see here. We will see. I'm like Adam Schefter. I have so many phones. What is up, East of the Bend listeners? This is the East of the Bend podcast, back after a month. Got a little hiatus there. Great to be back. An undefeated season we're sitting in the middle of. How great is that? Will's out this week. We got the Notre Dame Fan Club of Columbus founder in the house, Mark Hissom. How's it going, man?
Oh, man, doing great. 12-0. Get excited.
Feels good, doesn't it? Feels good. Before we get rocking too far ahead here, we are the official podcast of the Notre Dame Fan Club of Columbus. Game day watch parties at 346 South High Street in Columbus. That's Dempsey's Food and Spirits. You know Dempsey's has always got our back. This show's brought to you as well by Dempsey's. And we got Mr. Kent Price, DJ Digital Input Kent Price. It's just as funny and just as cheesy looking, holding it up every single time. He's like, you leave it, and you can hold it up during the show. I'm like, all right, that's a hell of a commercial. But yeah, the Irish, man, 12-0. This is awesome. I mean, I know I didn't see this coming before the season started. We did the preseason show with Loud Pop there with Allison, and she said 10-2. I said 10-2. I had losses to Northwestern and Virginia Tech. And how did you feel, Mark, before the season started?
I was feeling pretty good. I mean, Allison had me convinced after that podcast that they were going to end up 10-2, but. Looking at the beginning of the season, obviously you're thinking USC and Stanford are going to be the two that I was worried about the most. I was not thinking Virginia Tech like you were, or Northwestern at that time. But I'm excited. 12-0. Like I said, we were talking about this before the show. This is what, the third time?
Yeah, third time. Brian Kelly's went 3-0 in his career. I read an article the other day that actually the only other coach outside of Nick Saban to go 10-0 or 12-0 3 times is Brian Kelly, which we said before, we give Brian, Coach Kelly, we give him a lot of crap sometimes, but man, he's really turned it around, and a lot of it is just some of the changes he made after the 2016 season that had to be done.
Yeah,
absolutely had to be done.
Yeah, and just talking about Notre Dame, the history of Notre Dame. Since I've been born, I'm not going to date myself, but I'm probably going to here.
Back in my day.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at 4 undefeated seasons.
Yeah.
Of course, NCAA took away the 2012 season from Brian Kelly, but
yeah, three times because that didn't happen.
My entire life.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
I know.
It's a really exciting time, man, to be a Notre Dame fan, and I can't believe it that they actually, at least 2 of the 3 games, they did what I was talking about. Just wipe those teams off the field, which is awesome because Syracuse was really good, and that looked so good for us now. Yeah. Absolutely. So, and of course, we couldn't make it easy against USC. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a little bit, but this is a big show, man. We get the second of the 3 individuals that run ABC 57 Saturday Kickoff. We had Allison Hayes earlier before the season, as I said, for the preseason show, which was awesome. You guys know, obviously, one of my heroes in the sports media. We got her ball up here. She signed for us. Really cool. But we got Vahid Sadrzadeh coming on here in probably another minute or 2. I'll give him a call. And we'll talk about the season, talk about his involvement and some of the great stories. You're really missing out, honestly, as a Notre Dame fan. and really as just a fan of college sports in general. If you don't tune in, they stream it online. If you're not on ABC 57 or not in the South Bend market, they stream it online. You're really missing out. They do some great stories. And again, if you're a Notre Dame fan, I mean, it is the only Notre Dame only preview show or pregame show. You watch game day, you're gonna get some Auburn, you're gonna get a lot of Bama. You're pretty much gonna get the entire SEC. You get Ohio State, you get Oklahoma, you get Michigan, you get everybody. You get Pac-12. If Notre Dame's playing a big team, you'll hear about it, and if they're on site, obviously you'll hear about it. But this is the only Notre Dame specific pregame show in the entire country. Yeah. So really, people are doing themselves a disservice if you don't watch these guys. Matt Randall, if you're out there watching, you are not excluded from this. We're going to track you down during basketball season. He's the third guy on the team. So you think you're running from east of the Bend, we're coming for you. We are coming.
Oh, yeah. If you want to get an idea of what this team, the sense follow around this team, how they feel, what you think, what you don't see on TV.
Yeah.
I mean, just listen. If you guys have not listened to the podcast with Allison, back mid-season or beginning of the season, it was very impressive. I mean, just to get an idea of what goes on day in and day out, and the sense of what the aura of the team is, I guess you could say.
Absolutely.
It was amazing.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, she's at practice all the time, and she's such a good football mind. But these guys, you want to, at East of the Bend, we gave people what we called the North Catholic experience when we covered NC. Really with Vahid and the stories he does, and Matt Randall and the other individuals on the ABC 57 team, they really give you the Notre Dame experience on a game day. I mean, I know one of my favorite stories, and I'll tell Vahid when I ask him what his favorite story was to cover, but all the statues outside of the stadium, he walked around the stadium with the guy, and then he went to like his shop, and even the Moose Krause statue that this guy constructed, the guy didn't even start doing statues till he was like in his 50s. Wow. And now he's 80 years old, and he has some of the most famous statues, not just at Notre Dame but around the world.
Right.
So that very cool stuff there. Very cool. So let's give Vahid a call here and get this show rocking. See if I still have any kind of interview skills left. You can follow Vahid at Vahid TV on Twitter, and he is coming in hot.
Hello.
Hey, Vahid, this is Gregg Shaffer, the East of Bend podcast. You're live with us. Hey. How you doing, sir?
Hey, not too bad. How you doing, guys?
We're doing good, man. I got Mark Hissom in here. He's the Notre Dame Fan Club of Columbus founder.
How you doing,
Mark? Good to see you. Good to hear from you.
Nice to hear you.
Absolutely, man. So give our listeners a little idea about yourself. We obviously we pump your guys' show every single week. ABC 57 Saturday Kickoff is. Notre Dame fans are really missing out. We just said before we called you if they don't follow the show. But give us a little idea about your background, what all you've done in sports media.
Yeah, for sure. Good to be with you guys. Obviously, love working with you on a weekly basis. And this is the way I put it. If you're a Notre Dame fan and are not aware or haven't seen ABC 57 Saturday Kickoff, you've been missing out. We started the show about 3 years ago, and I hopped on right away. I've been an anchor with our station here in South Bend for a few years now, since 2016, and before that, I've been covering college and high school sports pretty much for about 15 years, dating all the way back until about 2003 when I did play-by-play and color commentating for my college in Northfield, Minnesota, way back in the day. I went to a D3 school, and so I cut my teeth there and just followed college football and college sports and high school sports, for that matter, for the last 15 years around the nation. Worked primarily in the Midwest. I'm from Madison, Wisconsin, so the Wisconsin Badger blood runs deep as well. Sorry, guys.
It's all good.
Ohio State fans
I tell you what, I've said before. I've actually said in the past that I want to go to a game at Wisconsin. I want to go to Camp Randall, but I'm always afraid I'll go and come back and be like, I think I really like Wisconsin right now. Like
the fan base is pretty amazing. I got to tell you, seeing a game at Camp Randall, it's been renovated over the years, but still a great place to see a football game. I've lived in Minnesota for 17 years, did not catch on with the fan base there. I was not popular with the fan base there, to say the least.
I wouldn't think so.
But it was a good experience living up there, and they're I mean, everywhere I've lived, basically, there have been dedicated fans, and Notre Dame, no doubt, is one of the most dedicated fan bases around. I know you guys know that. So coming here and seeing that was no surprise at all.
Yeah, definitely. And since you've joined on with the kickoff show on Saturday mornings, man, you've got to do some really cool stories. We were just talking about before we called you. What was one of your favorite stories you got to cover this season?
This season, we've really just kind of expanded and on me, it's just the personal touch and the personal element that I get to do on a weekly basis. Some of the stories that I've done in the past, and we did a Play Like a Champion piece last year. Obviously, you guys know the sign in the locker room, and that's one of my favorite stories to tell. The artist, she's a local artist, and she used to work at the University of Notre Dame under Lou Holtz in the graphic design department. So Lou would come to her and make graphic, signs. I mean, and back then, late 1980s, it was done by hand. So we're not talking graphic design, what they do today in front of a computer. So she would make signs by hand. So she was an artist, and she painted the Play Like a Champion Today sign. She still lives in South Bend. And, in the early 90s, she got MS and kind of taken her ability to paint away, which is why those signs are so special to people. I think she made over 600 signs and before they printed those out. And so I got a chance to do a story on her, and it was just incredible. I mean, making that emotional connection. Everybody's a Notre Dame fan until they have a story behind it.
Yeah.
That's been obviously one of my favorite pieces to do, and that was last year. This year we've just kept the momentum going. Doing some of these pieces with the Notre Dame football players this year, and this year I had the distinct pleasure and opportunity to do a piece on the gentleman who actually is the sculpture for the sculptures that you see outside Notre Dame Stadium of all the coaches. So Rockney and Holtz and Frank Leahy. So if you've ever been to Notre Dame Stadium, there's these distinct life-size and bigger than life-size sculptures around the stadium of each coach who really has won a national championship with the program. And so the gentleman who actually built these still is around campus. He's in his 80s now, lives in Texas, and he does work out of his studio there. But we had an opportunity to do a walk with him. Really, really cool guy. Went to Notre Dame, still has love for the university. And an interesting thing is, he says, hopefully one day we'll be able to put up a sculpture of Muffin McGraw. And I think that right there is something they need to do personally.
Absolutely. It's funny you mentioned that, because before we got on, I was like, I was going to tell you that was my favorite story that you've done.
Yeah.
In fact, I made my wife rewatch it just 2 days ago. I was like, we got to watch this again before we have Vahid on this Friday. I love that story. And even Allison said, we met her for lunch when we were up there, and she's like, it was just so good. She's like, I kind of got a tear to my eye at the end there when he said, goodbye to Moose Krause there off the bench. So that was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool.
It's fun connecting guys with people who have a history with the university and who know the university in and out, but really have that human element to it. And I think that's what makes Notre Dame so special, is sharing those stories with people who have that deeper connection, that deeper meeting with the university, that can share that with you, that give you that sense of history. It's all about that sense of history with Notre Dame, and it's fun. It's fun being able to share those stories week in and week out on the show.
Absolutely. And you guys do a wonderful job. And I'd said before we called you, I said, we had Allison on, now you, and Matt's not excluded from this. We're going to track him down during basketball season, I think, Matt Randall.
For sure.
So you
absolutely. He knows his hoops. I mean, that's 100% for sure. And with the Notre Dame women's hoops team, dominating again, and I think he could really add a lot to perspective. So
we appreciate that for sure. So we'll hop into a little bit of football here, and I know your time's valuable for sure. But in our opinion, and probably in your opinion as well, this team exceeded expectations by a long shot. And maybe a long shot's a little strong word, but before the season, where did you expect Notre Dame to finish this year?
It's tough. I mean, coming off that win last year in the Citrus Bowl. Personally, I was really high on Ian Book. I thought that last drive that you saw was a glimpse of what could be a Notre Dame team. I personally didn't know that they were going to be this strong on defense. And I know on paper they're not one of the strongest defenses in the nation. But listen, you put those front four, front seven guys against anybody in the nation, and I think they can compete. I think they're led by some pretty tough-nosed, hard-nosed guys that want to win. Drew Tranquil, Jerry Tillery, those guys want to win. They've been around the program for a few years now, and they want to win. And I think during the offseason, that's when the work was done. It was interesting. We had an opportunity to talk to Coach Elson's wife because we're doing a piece that I don't want to give away too much, but we're doing a piece for a bowl special that we're going to do. And she had said in the offseason she knew something was different when Mike would come back from these workouts with these guys. And she said it was just a different atmosphere. And I think nobody expected them to be as good as they were on defense. And when they showed that against Michigan and on and on and on, we go to the season and they're holding opponents to under 20 points a game, 22 points a game. Then you have one of the elite defenses in the nation. I think you can win with an elite defense, and that's what you have this year. And I think it caught everybody off guard, to be honest.
Going back to talking about Ian Book and the Citrus Bowl last year, before this season started, after spring practice and then into fall, who did you think should have been the starting QB?
Well, I knew you just had a feeling around camp and during the summer that coach was going to stick with Wimbush. I think that he provided that spark last year. He led them to victories last year. I mean, they turned the program around. I mean, last year was the year they did that. Ian Book came in, provided that spark off the bench when they needed it in the Citrus Bowl. But I thought going into the season, I thought Wimbush was going to be the starter. And you thought, listen, if he can get through these first couple games unscathed, he's going to be the starting quarterback. And I think that's why it was so surprising when the change happened after the first few games, because, to be honest, it's not every day you bench a starter that wins 15 games in college football, goes 15-3, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's what seemed to be a trend though this year. Coaches, taking chances, and it just so happens to be our top three took a chance. You look at Saban, switching from Jalen. You look at Clemson and Dabo. They switched down to Trevor Lawrence. So, taking out a guy. I mean, even like Kelly Bryant took them to the playoffs last season.
Right. And, Coach Kelly does have a history of switching quarterbacks. I mean, if you look all the way back, even in the national championship year when they played Alabama in 2012, they did put in two quarterbacks that year. Reed's got some snaps as well, even though Golston was the main guy. I think that's kind of his mentality is, who can provide that spark? And I think Ian Book, what you saw in the Citrus Bowl, I think that resonated with a lot of people. And when you got to the third week of the season, they needed an offense, or fourth week of the season, you needed that offensive spark. He was there to provide it, and the result you see in front of your face. I mean, over 300-yard passing games, 3, 4, 5 TDs per game. I mean, Ian Book he provides that spark.
Yeah, definitely. Now, this has been, a special year, and we were talking before we called you. It's just how, the very few undefeated seasons we've had at Notre Dame, since really the Notre Dame's heyday. And at what point this season you followed this team? You've been very close to them, obviously closer than we have been. At what point did you know this was going to be a special season?
I think after the Stanford game, to be honest with you, because that Stanford game was hyped. I mean, you remember. I mean, it's top 10 matchup. Stanford's coming in number 8. How good is Notre Dame? I think every step of the way, right, we kind of looked at each other, okay, can they beat Michigan? If they beat Michigan, then who can they lose to, right? Because they play Ball State after that. They squeak by Ball State. You're like, well, they're better than that. They're better than what they played. How are they going to respond? They squeak by Vanderbilt, if you remember. And then they go to Wake Forest and they put on the show on the road. And I think people really weren't expecting them to put up 50-plus points in that game, but they did. I think everybody gelled together. And then that Stanford game, you saw something special that night. I think not only from Ian Book, I think you saw it from the entire team. And once they blew out Stanford, I think that's when the excitement started. At least for me, I think I can speak for, Allison, the ABC 57's kickoff team as well. I think once they got past Stanford, you could see in that locker room, you could see Coach Hill, they started getting excited. And they're going to tell you one game at a time. But after that Stanford game, and then they go on the road and beat Virginia Tech, you knew it was going to be a special season. You knew that they were on the cusp of doing something great.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. You talked a little bit about Drew Tranquill in the offseason and his importance to the development of this team. But I'd like to throw Tavon Coney in there. How do you think those two together have what kind of impact have they had to the success of this team this year?
Well, I think the telltale was during USC for me, for Coney, when they were down 10-0. You could see in Tavon Coney. I'm right down there on the sidelines, and I was filming the game as well. But you could see the emotion on Coney's face and how much he wanted it. And I think that's been the difference this year with that defense. Tavon Coney, Jerry Tillery, throwing Julian Okwara, throwing Julian Love, throwing everybody on that defense. They have gelled together. There's leadership, and you can see it. They get that from Drew Tranquill. Drew Tranquill comes in injured. I haven't seen that guy play this year not injured, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the hand, the foot, the leg. I mean, every game it seems like there's been an injury, but he's on the field leading those guys. And I think they draw from that example, and they're not going to lose. I mean, they're not going to – even if they're down, they're not out of the game. And I think that's been the difference this year compared to last year. You could see it. You could see how much they want to win. And that showed, when they were down 10-0 against USC last week even. So I think those guys, when you're seeing those guys on the field and the desire to be in there and to play, I think everybody expects that level from them. And that's what you're seeing this year with the guys that you mentioned and Drew Tranquill especially.
Yeah, sticking with some kind of some player-specific questions. We talked about the Stanford game, came up in your mind. Just what kind of impact has Dexter Williams had on the team? Because, man, it's been so significant. I feel like the offense and just the morale of the team, the swagger, if you will, has just been incredible since he's come back.
Man, I've had a couple chances to talk with him now. And, he is a fun guy. I don't know what switched in the offseason for him and sitting out those 4 games, but he brings that brightness to the Notre Dame locker room. And I think that's hard to beat. I mean, he brings that swagger. He brings the fun-loving attitude of, listen, I'm only around this game for a time. I need to have fun. I need to go out there and bring my A game for my guys every single week. And he does that. He does it with a smile on his face. And I think, some of the things that he's been off the football field, his mom being sick as well. I mean, he draws that. And I think he gets out on the football field and he has fun doing it. And I think it shows. I think he's one of the most exciting players in college football, to be honest with you. And he has fun doing it. It's good to see that. It's good to see the love for the game.
Yeah, definitely, and he just has that game-breaking ability. Tony's nice back, and Jafar has done a really good job for being a converted wide receiver. And I'm honestly pretty high on Sebo Flemister. I think he's going to be a nice player. But man, when you put Dexter on the field, every time he touches the ball, you kind of just get to the edge of your seat, in my opinion.
Well, he's always a tackle away from breaking it all, and I think having that home run hitter in the backfield. When you look at the Notre Dame offense, right, I think the big question is how are they going to beat Alabama? Everybody's asking that question. Yeah, they can beat Pitt. Yeah, they can beat Stanford. Yeah, they can beat Virginia Tech. Yeah, they can beat USC, and on and on. How are they going to beat Alabama, and how are they going to beat Clemson? I think those are the biggest questions that arise, right? I mean, we're asking that as fans. We're asking that every single day. How are they going to beat Alabama? But they can't beat Alabama. This offense is built to beat anybody in the nation. And why is because they have home run hitters on the outside, right? I mean, your Ian Book has his pick, 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" on the outside. Oh, wait, let me turn around and hand it to my running back who can break a tackle and go 70 to 75 yards on any given play. This offense is built to score points, and they've proved that all season long. And having home run hitters, not only in the running back, but in the wide receiver position, I think it's been invaluable. It's been invaluable this year for Coach Kelly.
Oh, yeah, and I agree with that 100%. With that said, is there any player on this team whose performance this year has been a surprise to you?
Boy, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think, other than Book, right? Book's the obvious answer. I mean, that's been the surprise of the season for a lot of fans and for a lot of insiders with Notre Dame football because, his ability to be on target and to throw over 65% completion rate. I mean, he's been very, very solid. I think on the outside, I think when you have the wide receivers you do, their play has really bolstered this team. Obviously, we came in expecting a certain level from Julian Love, right? I mean, Julian Love has been playing outstanding football for a couple seasons now. If you're looking on the defensive side of the ball, I think Julian Okwara really has stepped this game up. Khalid Kareem obviously has had a big season. If you're looking on the offensive side of the ball, I would say that wide receiver core, not just one person. I think, Alizé Mack as well has made a huge contribution to this team this year. I think that wide receiver group as a whole has really stepped up their game and had a big season.
Yeah, definitely. And, it's funny you mentioned that. And I don't know what people's expectations were of Book. Because even the people that were in the Book camp, I'm not even really sure they thought he could do what he's done this season.
It's been pretty amazing to see. I mean, how many people were expecting him to light up the scoreboard at Wake Forest? I mean, you guys are, you cover Notre Dame. You're fans of Notre Dame as well. I mean, was anybody expecting, after we've seen, Brandon Wimbush the last 15 games before that Wake Forest game, did anybody expect Ian Book to put up those kind of numbers? I don't think so. And it's not a knock on Ian Book. I just didn't think anybody expected that.
I think one of the consensus that was running around is that he was just kind of a mobile Tommy Rees. I heard that several times. And because a lot of it was because of his low, recruiting. He wasn't heavily recruited. He was recruited a little bit, but nothing too crazy. And I think he was looked at as like, yeah, he might catch some starts if there's an injury. But I think that's where a lot of the shocks come from, is because I've heard it several times. He's a mobile Tommy Rees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can see the comparisons. I earlier on in the season, I mean, midway through the season, I looked to Allison. We had a conversation, and I said, Allison, he reminds me of a Drew Brees type. He's not very tall. He's not very tall in the pocket, but he has the ability to, number one, scramble, which is his biggest asset. He scrambles, but he looks to throw first. And I think that's, if you look at the difference between him and Wimbush this year and last year, Wimbush wanted to run first, then look for the passer, right? I mean, Wimbush's ability to run is fantastic, but he would always look to run first, then pass. If you look at Ian Book this year, it's been the exact opposite. If he's been on the run, his head is always downfield scanning for his wide receivers. And that's why I think Fink has gotten a lot of the touches this year as well and provided that spark for the Irish as well this year, because it's all about making plays on the run when that front breaks down for the Irish. And I think finding those receivers has been a big difference. So his head is on a swivel all game long, so he can provide the spark running, and then he's always looking for the man downfield as well if it breaks down.
Yeah, me and Mark, we were actually at the Vanderbilt game, and that's one of the things in person. On TV you can see enough, but during the game when you're actually there, you can see it. And I looked at him, and I was like, Mark, I was like, that is the difference I see, or well, the problem at the time because I didn't really have much to compare to. But Brandon wasn't throwing to a spot. It's like he was waiting on his guys to get open, and these guys are so athletic now. 2018 Division I college football, you can't just wait on your guy to get open because at that point he's not. It's too late.
Yeah, I mean. And how much does it help, though? How much does it help to have Claypool, who's been a reliable guy this year downfield, or, we talked about Fink or Boykin. When that play breaks down and Book is on the run, those guys come back to the ball.
Yeah.
And I think that's been another difference this year, too, is those guys are looking for the ball. They're looking to break free. And it helps. It helps for Ian Book to have those guys. You've seen him throw it up a couple times. I'm just going to throw it to my wide receiver. He's going to make a play.
Yep.
And having that trust in those guys is huge.
Definitely. It kind of reminds me a little bit of 2012 when a lot of times Golson would just trust Tyler Eifert to just go up and grab the ball, So, we talked about, we did lose some coaches in the offseason this year. Lost Coach Elko and then lost Coach Heasted to the Bears. I know you're a Packer fan. I'm sorry about that. I'm a Bear fan. So.
It's all good. It's all good. I give credit where credit is due. They're having a fantastic year.
I can't even say anything. You get just a crazy amount of riches up there. Plus Lambeau's amazing, I'm sure.
No, it's a good place. It's almost I compare it to Notre Dame Stadium. There's lore,
could see that.
There's history, and it's a cool place. No pun intended. I mean, it's a cool place
Definitely.
to watch a football game. But yeah. I mean, give credit where credit is due. The Bears have had a great season.
Yeah, definitely. So far, we'll see how it finishes up. But, Clark Lee takes over for Coach Elko and then Jeff Quinn for Harry. Talk about how these guys have just, come in and really not skipped a beat. And especially with Jeff Quinn coaching the offensive line and losing Alex Barr, arguably our best offensive lineman to injury. Talk about how the job these guys have done.
I mean, listen, that is one of the most underrated jobs, I think, all season long. Because when Alex Barrs went down, you can kind of feel an exhale, right, this season. How are they going to respond now that their leader on the offensive line is not playing? I mean, and if you look at the mall cops, right, he was one of the last original mall cops on the offensive line. And so those guys gelled. I mean, when you play that many games together and lose a guy of that magnitude on the offensive line, it's hard to tell what's going to happen. But, man, I mean, how good has the offensive line been this year? And that's all coaching. I mean, can you get those guys to buy in to the program? Can you get them to buy in every single game when you're going up against different defenses, right? How many different defenses did they play this year? How many different looks did they see? And I think that's been a huge, underrated part of this puzzle for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish this year is that offensive line. So the coaches have done a fantastic job. And the job I think that really in the last 2 years has developed is Coach Bayless. He got the game ball after the USC game. All offseason, not only this year, but last year, they've been talking about strength and conditioning. What are you going to do in the fourth quarter when the game's on the line? How is the team going to react? What is the conditioning going to be like? And we've seen it play in this year. In the fourth quarter, I think the Irish have played their best football. Third and fourth quarter, they put teams away. They're responding, and Matt Bayless and the job he's done, I think it's been fantastic and really beneficial for the Irish.
Yeah, you've definitely been able to see a difference over these last 2 seasons for sure.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, if you're asking me, I think, the job they've done on the offensive and defensive lines and not dropping off to where they were last year, I think they've done a fantastic job. Alex Barr is filling that hole, and it helps when you have a senior defensive lineman who comes in and is not a rookie, and he kind of knows, and he knows the system. So it's been a fantastic year if you're a lineman, and I think they've done a fantastic job.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Staying on the offensive side of the ball, how impressed have you been with the offensive play calling this year, and what do you think they need to improve on going into the playoffs?
I don't really know if they need to improve on much, to be honest with you. I think the goal line situation we saw against Syracuse was an anomaly. You remember that play calling where Book was back there and he kind of tripped and he threw the ball up, and I don't think a lot of that's play calling. I think it's situational football, but I think the play calling this year with Book has been something special and something different than we've seen in the last couple of years with the play calling. I think they've been able to open up that playbook. You guys obviously saw the USC game. They wanted to. When's the last time we saw a trick play with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish?
Yeah,
they wanted to pull that trick play out of the bag, but I think you're going to see some of that moving forward. I think you're going to see some fun with the play calling, and who knows what the situations are going to be against Clemson, against Alabama down the road, and whoever else they may play. But I think that opening up the playbook this year and having those deep targets it's made it fun, right? I mean, it's made it fun for us to watch this year. And you can win ugly. I mean, Notre Dame has won ugly the last 2 years. I mean, they've had their fair share of games, but having fun and seeing them open up the passing and the play calling has been a joy to watch.
Yeah, I attribute that interception down in the red zone. I mean, that's a playmaker just trying to make a play, in my opinion, when I see him falling back like that.
He tripped.
Yeah.
He tripped over his own offensive line, and that happens. And he tried to put it up there for his wide receivers, and unfortunately it didn't work out on that play. But I mean, opening up the playbook for Ian Book has really been pretty amazing, pretty cool to see as a fan too.
Definitely. I'll tell you, one of the things that's come up, since this run's been going on, and you've probably heard it yourself, but, my question really is, what is the difference between this team and 2012? I know you probably weren't as closely involved with the 2012 team, but what do you think the biggest difference is this year?
That's hard to say. And Coach Kelly has said that the two teams are incomparable. I mean, you can't look at the 2012 team and say, well, this team is very similar. I think the way they've gone about winning games has been different. I think there's a pretty special feel inside this locker room that they can win this championship. And I think that people outside of the locker room are believing that as well. And I don't know. Excuse me. I don't know in 2012 if you can say that same thing. Hey, like we definitely believe we can knock off Alabama. I mean, that was a really good defense. And you remember 2012. I mean, that defense was shut down. It went into Oklahoma that season and put a hurting on Oklahoma, right? I mean, that was a special defense. But I think if you're looking at this year's team, the feel in that locker room and the belief in that locker room is, what we've seen so far. And they don't let teams hang around. I mean, USC, I think, was an anomaly in itself. It's a rivalry game. That it's different. I think when you're playing rivalry games, you see that Oklahoma and Texas earlier this year. They're going to play again this weekend, and Georgia and Alabama. But when you have that mentality and you shut down opponents, I think that emanates in your locker room. I think that's, if you're going to compare the two seasons, I think that's maybe what I would say. But, Coach Kelly has said it all year, and I think he's right about that. The teams are incomparable. You have quarterbacks that you can't compare. But it's been fun to watch. And the credit goes to Coach Kelly. I mean, 2 out of 7 seasons, he goes undefeated and 12-0. I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
a big deal. It's impressive, and it's a big deal.
Definitely. I'll tell you what, though, I think a lot of something that I don't think gets talked about enough, and I know no excuses for a close game with a 5-7 school. And you mentioned the rivalry, but I mean, they're coming off the tail end of an incredible road trip for for college kids. Talking about 18 to 22-year-old kids who played 5 games in 5 different cities. That's a pro skate. The NFL doesn't even do that.
We were looking at that schedule before the season started. We're like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean, this is, and for Coach Kelly to be able to laugh about it, and he said it in the post-game interview on ESPN. He also said it in the post-game press conference. He said this is an on-Broadway show.
Yeah.
I mean, what Broadway shows are crisscrossing the country 9,000 miles? I mean, this was the worry. I think if there was one worry going into this season, it was how are these guys going to handle the end of the regular season? Are they going to drop off because of the miles? Is the travel – I'm jet lagged. I've been back for 2 or 3 days now from Los Angeles. I'm still feeling it, I mean, granted, I'm not 22, 21 anymore, but, the schedule these guys have faced this season has been incredible, and they deserve it. I mean, they deserve all the credit because everybody plays a factor. The nutrition staff, the strength and conditioning, the coaches, keeping them on this rigorous schedule is tough for anybody. And I think everyone on that staff deserves credit for going 12-0.
For sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, and just thinking about this weekend being the weekend of all weekends this year for college football, who do you think will be in the Final Four come Sunday when the rankings come out?
Oh, this is the fun part now. We're to the fun part of the season. I do think Alabama gets it done this weekend. I don't think they have the easiest of games with Georgia, but I think they get it done. I don't think it goes into overtime like it did last year during the College Football Playoff Championship, but I think they get it done. I think Oklahoma also gets it done. I think it's very hard to beat a team twice in a season, and they've seen Texas now. Oklahoma can seemingly put up 70 points a game if they wanted to. I mean, their offense looks amazing right now. I think they get it done. So I think the top 4, you have Alabama, then you have Clemson, you have Notre Dame sitting at number 3, and then you have Oklahoma at number 4. And I think the interesting thing is, that I don't think a lot of people have talked about, but I think the interesting thing is that, if you have number 1 versus number 4 and you have Oklahoma playing Alabama, if you're Alabama, you're not playing Oklahoma in Dallas, Texas. You're playing them in Miami. I mean, I think the fan base for Oklahoma having that short trip, I think you want to get them on the road a little bit and put them in Miami. So I think that's maybe where Alabama goes if they play Oklahoma. I think they play in Miami, and I think you find Clemson and Notre Dame and Dallas.
That'd be great because we got to stay out of Miami. We just can't. We can't go back there. We got to stay out of Miami. I got PTSD from these Miami trips. Ridiculous.
Oh, the last 2 games.
Yeah, the last. That's
2.
what I mean. The last 2. Good night.
I think we need a different change. I think we need a change of scenery. I think Notre Dame fans want to go to Miami and kind of erase those memories. I think let bygones be bygones. Yeah. Go to Dallas and do something else. Make a different memory in Dallas.
Like I said, sometimes you watch a game and it's like just do something else. Do something else. Anything. Let's do something else. But I will say, though, you mentioned that matchup. That intrigues me. That Oklahoma, much to the chagrin of our local listeners here, some of them being
right.
we're in the middle of middle of Buckeye country. Which, hey, we don't care. But I want to see Oklahoma and Alabama. I think that would be an interesting matchup with that high-powered offense. And then if Alabama can go ahead and score with them, which we all think that the Big 12 defenses, they're crap. And, for the most part, when you're having 60 to 50 games, it's kind of a good opinion. But how much would the national narrative change if Oklahoma could beat Alabama and, God forbid, a Big 12 defense stop the mighty Alabama? I mean, come on now. That would be interesting in my opinion.
I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. Call me crazy. I think Alabama's definitely beatable. I don't, I don't see the invincible armor that many writers or journalists think that covered. I just don't see that. And I've seen better Alabama teams lose, right? I mean, we saw them lose. Ohio State Buckeye fans know, right?
Yep.
I mean, a couple of years ago. But this team's not invincible, and I think if you have a high-powered offense that can match step for step, you could come really on a neutral field. Anything can happen, and I think we've seen that play out of the college football playoffs over the last couple of years. And don't exclude the layoff. I mean, there's a 3-week layoff between these games, so when these teams are coming in hot off of a conference championship, you know, it'll take them the atmosphere and playing together again. And under those circumstances, how fast the game is. I mean, it's going to take them a quarter and a half to adjust to those situations sometimes. And I think if you get it at the right time and you have a high scoring offense like Oklahoma has, watch out. I mean, Oklahoma can put on a show.
Definitely. Yeah, I look forward to that game, and Vahid, we appreciate your time, man. We'll get you out of here on this one. It's something I've been hearing this national narrative all week, driving to work, listening to satellite radio, and now I want your opinion because let's be real honest here. I have a lot of respect for all you guys, and I actually care about your opinion. So, what do you feel needs changed with these college football playoffs? You know, what would you like to see done with the playoffs? Would you like to see expansion? You want to keep it at 4? You know, conference champs? Probably not, obviously. But what do you think needs done or needs changed?
Yeah, I've said it for a couple of years now, and this is my personal opinion on it. Everybody has a different opinion, obviously, on what these college football playoffs should be. I think it should go 8 teams. I think 8 teams is a fair amount of teams. I've said that for a couple of years now. You know, everybody was you remember the narrative in college football this season, mid-season. Everybody's like, who's going to lose? There's going to be 5 undefeated teams and 6 undefeated teams, and now what are the playoff committee? What are they going to do now?
Right.
Well, we see it play out every year, and now you're looking at, well, there's 1-loss teams, right? There's 5 1-loss teams and a couple 2-loss teams. I mean, what are we going to do now? And UCF, right? If you're a UCF fan, how sick are you that you're going undefeated, possibly 2 seasons in a row, and without a shot at a college football playoff championship? I mean, you've got to be sick if you're one of their fans. So I think 8 teams right now would be the answer. We've seen 16 teams with FBS, and the division North Dakota's in. I mean, they've obviously won that a couple of years in past few years. But I think 8 teams for me is the answer right now. And then I think it needs to be re-examined in a couple of years and see how they want to improve it. I think moneymaker is the all-important factor there, and you're going to do what's best for those teams and those networks.
Oh yeah, definitely. And how do you feel that how big of a deal is the conference championship to the selection committee if, say, all the things that they say are going to happen this weekend happen? I mean, does Notre Dame have a chance of really being left out of this?
I mean, I think they do, but it's a small percentage. I mean, listen, I don't think a conference championship is the end all. I think it's a last look for these committee members to see what these teams can do. I don't think it's an end all. Obviously for Ohio State, for Oklahoma, for Georgia, these games this weekend are huge. But if you're a Notre Dame fan, do I think you have to worry because they're not in a conference championship this weekend? No. Has that hurt them in the past? Yes. I don't think a conference championship is an end-all, but I think if you're a Notre Dame fan, I think you can rest easy this week knowing that they've got that number 3 position locked down.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know. I don't see how a conference championship, it's like, heck, at this point, we've beat 2 of the teams that are division winners. So, definitely. I mean, we're sitting in a nice position right now, in my opinion, though, with coming in on the weekend and just getting to sit back and enjoy some of these games.
Yeah, I'm a believer in the Fighting Irish this year. I think every game we've sat back and watched and said, oh, well, maybe. And what if they do this? And what if they do this? And don't sleep on them. they're going to get in. We'll see that on Sunday. They're going to get in. Don't sleep on them. We'll see how it plays out. It should be a fun last couple of weeks to the season here in 2018.
Yeah, and man, we really appreciate your time, Vahid. This has been awesome to get you on here again. Now we've had 2/3 of the ABC 57 crew, and you're firsthand, man. You're right there, and being able to see it. And me and Will's not here tonight. We have Mark fill in, and Mark does amazing job supporting east of the bend, so that's been really cool for us. And but yeah, we appreciate your insight. I'm sure. Are you guys going to do a road show down to the playoffs then?
Yeah, we haven't solidified anything just yet. I know we're definitely gonna be there. We're definitely gonna be sharing some of those stories the week leading up to that college football game wherever it is on December 29th. So we'll keep people abreast. If they want to follow us, they can go to our website. Obviously, we have a Facebook page too, and we haven't solidified anything, but I can promise you one thing: we're gonna be down there as we always are.
Very awesome. We may have to request like an exclusive Vahid Sadrzadeh picture or something, and we'll flash it all around Dempsey's while we're doing the game watch party, and be like, "Look at us! Yeah, this is our inside info right here." So
you just let me know, man. I'm with you 100%, so it's no problem.
Hey, and anything else we can do to promote the ABC 57 kickoff show, just let us know. And we always try to stream you guys live at Dempsey's when we have, because that's where I'm sure you've listened. That's where we do all the game watch parties for fans, alumni, the whole bit in Central Ohio. So you let us know if we can do anything for you guys.
Will do, man. That's awesome. Maybe we can. I'll have to take a road trip, and we'll do a show. We'll do a show live out there. I'll be able to join you firsthand. That'd be cool.
All right. Yeah. Hey, keep us updated, and we'll definitely make that.
2023 or two.
Yeah, 22. 2022. If we're all still kicking here, we got Ohio State or Notre Dame's coming to Ohio State, so. We'll see.
We love that. As Coach Kelly said, it's on Broadway. Show doesn't stop.
Exactly. Well, Vahid, you take it easy, man, and we look forward to what this playoff's going to bring. And I'll stay in touch with you throughout the playoffs and everything. Okay.
Awesome, guys. Good to talk to you tonight. Have a great weekend. We'll talk soon.
All right. Take it easy, man. See you.
You bet.
So that was Vahid Sadrzadeh from ABC Saturday Kickoff, ABC 57 Saturday Kickoff. Sorry, I snuck out. Way to take the audible there, Mark. Everything was lagging on here, and I went to just go reboot my Wi-Fi connection, and luckily I don't think we lost too much. Hopefully not. That's one of the few times that's happened. Sometimes I have to hit refresh before. We've had shows delayed because A, this show's done so haphazardly, and B, like, I just can't get it to pop up here, and I could see it coming, and like my this algorithm right here, how everything pops up and down, I could see it slowing down, and I was like, "Oh, Spectrum, I hate you so much right now." So yeah, that was awesome getting to have him on, and I've had Allison on, and we'll get Matt Randall on during basketball season. He stayed with us for a while. That was pretty cool, man.
Yeah, I mean, those guys have been invaluable just to have the insight of what goes on day in and day out with the football team. You don't get that anywhere else, for sure.
Definitely not. I mean, I know WNDU kind of does their thing, and a few of the other, I forget, I think it's CBS is 22 up there or something like that. But, yeah, man, these guys, they're there. They're seeing it firsthand. So very cool stuff there, and I'm definitely going to bum a picture off of him, I can tell you that. And we'll flash it around Dempsey. Yeah. Like, hey, this is our friend right here, if he doesn't delete and block my number. So me and Mark, we're going to knock out some championship game picks. We're going to just talk about who we think is going to come out on Sunday for the Final Four, and we're going to get out of here, and me and him's going to get something to eat and watch this Washington State-Utah game. So right now we're watching Buffalo, Northern Illinois. Before the game started, I know it's 7-0 Buffalo right now. Who did you have winning this one, or did you do no research at all?
I didn't do research on this one at all, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet not. I have Buffalo. They got a really nice quarterback, really elusive mobile quarterback, so yeah, I have Buffalo winning that. They're 10-2 actually, so had Buffalo winning that one. Like I said, we're gonna go watch Washington and Utah here in just a little bit. I love Kyle Whittingham. Honestly, he was my choice for potentially coaching at Notre Dame. I know there might be some, let's just say it, there's some religious issues. He's Mormon. I don't know. He's at the perfect spot being at Utah. He went to BYU, and he seems to love it out there. He's had other opportunities. God, his recruiting rankings are like 60th, 70th But, I mean, he's beaten Alabama in a Sugar Bowl before after going 12-0. A lot of people forget that. I actually like Utah tonight.
Man, I picked this to be my only overtime game of the weekend, and Washington by 2.
Washington by 2. All right. And so it's going to go to a couple overtimes. Somebody's going to have to go for 2. Okay. I like it. We'll just start kind of chronological order here. We'll go Oklahoma, Texas tomorrow at high noon.
We already talked about this one. I think Texas does it. You know, I mean, like I said, they were up 21 points in the fourth quarter last game. I think they know what they're doing now, and I think they have enough of a defense to stop Oklahoma 2 if 3 times.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that, but man, it is so hard to beat a team twice, especially with one that is explosive as Oklahoma is.
Yeah.
I'll take Oklahoma, and I think this time around, I think the defense shows up a little bit. I'll go 41-31, and I know that's crazy, but in 2018 college football, 31 points isn't a crazy amount.
Oklahoma's defense?
Oklahoma's defense to show up. Yeah, I know, right?
All right.
It exists, I think. I think it's still illegal to recruit DBs out there. Of course, I don't even know DBs is their problem. Their defensive line looks like the issue. Yeah. I mean, you see the guy get the ball, and it's like it's 6 yards for first contact.
Sure.
Next up, we got, and we both said this, UCF and Memphis.
Yeah, I mean, I'll pick Memphis, with injury to the quarterback at UCF. I mean, their offense is just not going to be the same. And Memphis will put up some points for sure. Mm-hmm. So I just don't think UCF can keep up. Yeah,
I mean, it's definitely going to be a different dynamic. It's one thing hopping in against USF. And USF, they've just tanked. I need a producer to look this stuff up for me. Vahid, help me out with a producer, man. Just throw me somebody. Come down here and work. Hey, Vahid, look that up for me. I think I'd be out of a podcast. He'll be like, I'm taking this whole East of the Bend thing. But USF, I think they started something like 6 or 7-0, and they've just tanked. So it's one thing to come into a game as a backup quarterback. I think UCF was at home last week. It's another to start the game, be the guy all week long against a team that I think, in my opinion, South Florida finished 7-5 this year. I think Memphis is a lot better team. And again, like you said, they can put up a lot of points. Yeah, they started the season 7-0 and lost 5 straight. USF did. So that Memphis definitely in a better situation than USF was.
Right.
Give me Memphis. I think it was 45-28. I'm not sure it's super close either with this new quarterback.
Yeah, I'm 41-35 on that one.
Gotcha. Probably the biggest game of the day, Alabama, Georgia.
I have Alabama by 10, 38-28. I mean, it is Alabama. Outside of that, I don't have any real insight into it. It's just my gut
38-28. I tell you what, though, that does show some vulnerability, though.
Yeah,
being able to put up 28 points against a team that, it's impressive to shut out anybody in college football. I mean, Notre Dame couldn't even shut out Ball State. Some of the biggest wins we've had, some of the biggest blowouts. Even Rice scored a few points against us.
Yeah.
It's hard to blow anybody out in college football. So for Bama to do that, that's super impressive. 2 weeks in a row, even LSU, Mississippi State, arguably they're 2 of their biggest opponents on their schedule. Yeah, I mean, so if Georgia can put up 28 points, I like what I see as far as us in our offense and the dynamic ability of our offense.
Yeah, sure. I agree. I mean, they're obviously going to. I mean, it's going to be all passing. I mean, Fromm's going to have to open it up, but I think that is Alabama's vulnerability right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I got Bama in this one. I agree with you. Honestly, I think something like 35-27, something like that. Now, I agree with Vahid on the other end of it. I don't think it's going to be this. I think it's going to be a little further apart. Maybe it's like 35-20. Georgia scores, needs an onside kick. They don't get the ball back. Georgia downs it. It's not going to be this overtime, last drive kind of thing. Next up, we got Boise State and Fresno State for the Mountain West title.
Man, toss up. It doesn't matter. That one.
Boise State's already beat Fresno State 24-17. So I'll take Boise State. I'll tell you what, man, the more I heard, now, Mackenzie Milton, we talked about before the show, feel bad for the kid. You never want to see a kid get that kind of injury. But, man, of all teams that should have an argument to get in, the more he complained and talked about Notre Dame, not being as good, I'm more of a Boise State fan hearing that because Boise State, they actually schedule teams. I mean, they've beaten Georgia. They've played Virginia Tech. They've played both Oregons when they were ranked. This year they went and played Oklahoma State. Now, granted, Oklahoma State's not that good, but they're trying.
Right.
They're a non-Power 5 that's trying to get that national recognition. I'm gonna take Boise State in this one. It's on the blue turf. Give me, I'd say like 35-21. Next up, we got Pitt and Clemson.
Clemson wins handily, 45-21.
Yeah, for sure. I think we match up well against Clemson. I can understand a narrative of, you guys will just go out there and get blown out by Alabama. Who cares if you make the playoffs? Okay, fine, whatever. Say what you want. I don't understand the Clemson thing because that's what the other thing people throw in. Oh, you guys can't compete with Clemson and Alabama. Especially not this year.
No, definitely not. I mean, Clemson is not. I mean, we've given Clemson everything they can handle. We should have won that game.
In 2015, absolutely should have won that game, and that was Deshaun Watson's Clemson team.
Right.
The next year when they win a national title, I don't see it. I mean, you look at their schedule. The best team they played is Texas A&M, who has 4 losses.
Right.
I mean, then you get the narrative. Notre Dame's not a conference champ. Well, also they played Fordham in week 1.
Right.
So,
well, we've had 2 common opponents this year.
Yeah.
As well. I mean, the differences are not.
No, not incredible. They blew
nothing,
out
nothing to talk about.
I think they blew out Wake 60-something to 3. We didn't beat Wake by that much, but they only beat Syracuse by 3, and we beat Syracuse by 33.
Right.
So. And then, I take Clemson as well. Pitt is playing better, actually a lot better. But, but of course they just got beat last week by Miami after being on quite a streak of playing a lot better. They started turning things around the week they played us. I don't even know if this game's that close. I think, give me like 41-13 because, I mean, Pitt played Penn State, and it was like 51-6.
Right.
So, yeah, give me Clemson big, especially with everything on the line. And in the last game of the night, Ohio State Northwestern.
Man, I want to say Northwestern, but I'm going to go with Ohio State.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be closer. I don't think Ohio State's going to do what they did against Michigan at all. I think Northwestern, like I said before the show, they have nothing to lose.
Right.
27-21 Ohio State.
Yeah, if Pat Fitzgerald has any tricks up his sleeve or in his bag, he's got to pull them out for this game. I think. What did you say it was?
27-21.
27. I think Urban will get the guys up. The 38-24. I'm still not a believer in that defense either. I don't think. And then even if I was, they still gave up 39 points.
Right.
Like a lot of people are like, oh man, they did. They blew out Michigan, and that was a hell of an accomplishment. We didn't do that. Granted, we didn't have Ian Book or Dexter Williams, but we didn't blow them out like that. But they still gave up 39 points.
Sure.
So if you're making this comparison, I've heard all week just how historically bad Oklahoma's defense is, and that's fine. But did anybody just forget that Ohio State gave up, 51 2 weeks ago? They gave up 39. They've had some close games against some not good teams. So we both have Ohio State winning. We both have Clemson winning. He's got Texas. I got Oklahoma. So I imagine your Final Four is what?
Oh, yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, Ohio State.
Yeah, and I think if Oklahoma gets it done tomorrow, I think they're in. I think what the committee is going to look at, one of the biggest things they're going to look at is the Ohio State lost by 30 to a 6-6 team.
Yeah.
Would you agree if it comes down to those two that Oklahoma's in?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So Ohio State's probably got to be hoping for Texas to win tomorrow, at least in our opinion. Yeah. And in local, Ohio State fans are probably going to be all pissed off at me. But honestly, Jerry Kirkpatrick, love you, Jerry, but Ohio State by 50, I don't know about that. My number might be a little high, but if you don't, you want to think we're stupid for thinking whatever about the game. It's about Ohio State not getting in. Listen to the local media. I listen to 97.1. And 97.1 is even saying they're the biggest Homer Ohio State network around. They're even saying no, Oklahoma wins, they're in.
Yeah,
and winning in. They're even saying 70-10 is what Ohio State would have to win by. Kind of similar to the 59-0 over Wisconsin,
right,
to force the committee's hand.
But you know how I feel. I've been talking about it since before the season even started. My ideal matchup is to beat Ohio State and Alabama in the same season. We
would need some we would be talking crap for a long time, and you could die absolutely a very happy man. I told
you I'd probably never leave Dempsey's.
You'd just be a fixture on the wall. Yeah. Just move in. You can move upstairs with Mark. Oh man, that's awesome. So that about wraps it up for this week. man, we appreciate everybody sticking with us. We had a lot of viewers tonight. We'll get the podcast up a little later. I'll get it saved. Me and Mark, we're headed out. We got to get something to eat. We have real jobs, believe it or not. So we hope everybody enjoyed Vahid coming on. Sadrzadeh, awesome guy. Even if you're not a Notre Dame fan and you're still checking out the show, we appreciate you. You've seen a podcast said East of the Bend, and you're still following us. I know a lot of you guys enjoyed our Nerd Catholic coverage this year. But yeah, check those guys out and just see what kind of job that Allison and Vahid and Matt do on a Saturday. And we will share everything that they put out on their page. We work a lot, kind of hand in hand, promoting each other, which is really cool for us. So yeah, you can catch this episode on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, any podcast app out there. You can follow us at East of the Bend on Twitter, at East of the Bend on Facebook. We've got a YouTube channel I'm horribly behind on. Maybe one day. Maybe I'll put Will on it when he's back in the studio. Next Friday, we will be back. Next Friday, we'll be back with the Bowl Pick'em show, which is one of my favorite shows. Will be here, and literally all we're going to do is pick all the bowl games. We'll give you guys to look for. If you'd like to do the Bowl Pick'em, like March Madness style that ESPN has on their website, tune in. We'll give you the best coverage we can possibly give, or don't give, because you may just want to pick the opposite of that. Have you ever done a Bowl Pick'em? No? Well, listen next week. They're fun. Actually, and it's funny because either my wife or my mom wins ours every year. So that's about it for this week. You can follow ABC 57 Saturday Kickoff at ABC 57 Kickoff, and then you can follow Vahid at Vahid TV on Twitter. So until next week, go Irish.
Go Irish.